I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch network. Donald Trump's lawyers are turning on each other and otherwise just making a fool of themselves in their various media appearances. It would shock the conscience if it isn't Donald Trump's lawyers, but as the old adage goes, you get the lawyers you deserve. All right, let's talk about the lawyers turning on each other first. On the one hand, you have one group of Donald Trump's lawyers represented by Tim Parlatore, who are accusing the other faction of Donald Trump's lawyers, led by Joe Tacopina, of being unethical and having conflicts of interest that would disqualify that would disqualify Tacopina from even representing Donald Trump as his criminal defense lawyer, arising out of the Manhattan District Attorney's criminal case relating to the falsification of business records from the Stormy Daniels hush money payments. Here, this is a clip of Tim Parlatore on CNN calling out Donald Trump's, this is amazing, calling Donald Trump's lawyer Joe Tacopina out for having conflicts of interest and saying that it's unlikely that Tacopina will even be able to try the case. And then when asked further about Tacopina, Tim Parlatore, Trump's lawyer, is like, I don't even want to talk about this guy. Play the clip.
This is such a significant case. And of course, everyone has noted just how historic this indictment is. You heard from Joe Tacopina earlier today saying there is no chance there's a plea deal here. Do you think that Joe Tacopina is the right person to take this case to trial for your client, Trump?
Well, I know that Susan Eckles is a phenomenal attorney who's working on all the legal aspects of this. As to who's going to try the case, I know that Joe has certain potential conflict issues given his prior contacts with Stormy Daniels. So, who is the right attorney to take it to trial is something that the client will have to decide. Ultimately, the decision of who to stand next to you before a jury is a decision that only the client can make.
It sounds like you don't think that Joe Tacopina can. You think he has a conflict of interest here and will ultimately be the person representing Trump in this case?
I'm not going to comment on Joe Tacopina.
Oh, okay.
And by the way, this comes as there's a new Rolling Stone article with the headline, Trump's team blasts his lawyer as a dumb loudmouth. Joe Tacopina is pissing off others with his antics. And then the article goes on to say how sources familiar with the matters have told Rolling Stone that a number of Trump's other current lawyers have privately described Tacopina as dumb and as a loudmouth. And by the way, though, Parlatore and Tacopina have history, though, together of kind of hating each other. I think they've sued each other before for defamation when they represented people on opposite sides of a litigation. So they have a history that goes way back. But what Tim Parlatore is referring to is that Tacopina, several years before he represented Donald Trump, actually consulted with Stormy Daniels about potentially representing her in a case against Donald Trump or relating to the hush money payments. And so when Tacopina was asked a question, I think it was in 2018, about the Stormy Daniels situation, he said he couldn't answer the question because she was a prospective client. And under the New York State Bar rules, the ethical regulations governing licenses in New York, and this is the case under the American Bar Association rules and the rules of every state, when you consult with a potential client or a prospective client and they give you secrets or give you confidences, the level of confidentiality you owe them is basically the same confidentiality you owe an actual client, a prospective client. You have to keep those secrets in confidence, and you can't then leak those secrets to someone who has an adverse interest or use it in a way that would be adverse to the prospective client. And so that's what Parlatore is referring to there in terms of the conflict of interest. And then the other sources who are referring to Tacopina as a dumb loudmouth who is pissing people off. We've been covering here Tacopina's appearances. He's been on Meet the Press. He's been on Good Morning America. He's been on Ari Melber, and he's been even more, he's done more to incriminate Donald Trump than do anything that's helpful. And otherwise, remember he tried to like pull the paper from Ari Melber. I mean, all of these appearances have just been so odd.
Now let's take a quick break to talk about our next sponsor, Paired. My wife and I, we're super competitive people, especially with each other. The other day, we were going back and forth about, well, who knew our relationship history better? So we took to Paired. Paired, it's a relationship app for couples. You and your partner, you download the app, pair together, and every day Paired gives you questions, quizzes, and games to have fun, stay connected, and deepen your conversations. You'll never believe what I found out about my partner through using Paired. Apparently, she really wanted to start playing pickleball. Now, I had no idea. The Paired prompt asked her what was something she wanted to start doing this month. She said pickleball, and now we're in a weekly game with our neighbors. It's simple and often hilarious. Each day, you get a quiz to play or a question to answer, and you can't see your partner's answer until you answer yourself. It's been so funny to see how close our answers are sometimes, but then how different they are other times. It's really made for some great conversations. Whether you're just a few dates in or have been together a long time, it's time to lighten the mood and have fun with your partner by using Paired. Head to paired.com/Meidas to get a 7-day free trial and 25% off if you sign up for a subscription. Just head to paired.com/Meidas to sign up today. Connect with your partner every day using Paired. A happier relationship starts here.
By the way, here's another appearance that Tacopina just made with George Stephanopoulos on This Week. Here, play this clip.
This is something that obviously we believe is a political persecution, and I think people on both sides of the aisle believe that it's a complete abuse of power. He's a tough guy, George, as you know, and he's someone who's going to be ready for this fight. We're ready for this fight, and I look forward to moving this thing along as quickly as possible to exonerate him, despite what it seems to be doing in the polls.
What evidence do you have the Democrats see this as political persecution?
What? Sorry, what's that?
What evidence do you have that Democrats see this as political persecution? You said people on both sides of the aisle see this as political persecution.
There's not only articles have come out from the New York Times, Financial Times, and whatnot, saying this would be a grave miscarriage of justice, a mistake to bring this case. But I've heard Democrats coming out on various talk shows and radio shows and whatnot saying that this is not the case. Not that they're supporting Donald Trump or embracing him, but that's my point all along, George. It shouldn't matter what side of the aisle you sit. If you're an American and you're concerned about rule of law, there should be no scenario where you want this to happen, because we all know, and if you're intellectually honest, we all know that had Donald Trump not been Donald Trump and it was John Smith, this case never would have been brought. If he was not running for re-election, there's no way this case would have been brought. This case is not even legally sufficient. Factually, it's a joke, and it won't survive a challenge of law in a courtroom. You've had the federal prosecutors look at this case and... Go ahead, George.
You can't know that for sure. No one's seen the charges. There are at least 24 charges, according to most reports, perhaps up to 34.
Right.
You haven't seen the charges. I haven't seen the charges. You don't know what's behind that right now.
Yeah. Oh, I do know it, George. I mean, come on.
Again, it's just a bunch of word salad, and he just makes things up. But that's on brand for the Trump lawyers. And speaking about on brand for the Trump lawyers, this is one of the other lawyers, someone by the name of Jim Trusty, who was asked, hey, well, what are you going to do? He keeps threatening. I think he's threatening the judge. He's threatening the district attorney. And here you actually have a lawyer, someone who's licensed by the state bar, who says, that conduct that Trump's engaged in, Trump's doing it because he loves free speech, and he's a believer of free speech. Play the clip.
The president has had quite a bit to say, including this post from Friday. I'll read in part talking about the judge overseeing this case. He says, the judge assigned to my witch hunt case, a case that has never been charged before, hates me. A lot of that's in all caps. He goes on to say, that's the same person who railroaded my 75-year-old former CFO, Alan Weisselberg, to take a plea deal. He strong-armed Alan, which a judge is not allowed to do, and treated my companies, which didn't plead, viciously appealing. So a couple things to break down there. First of all, I'm an attorney. If my client posted that and was facing that judge, wouldn't make my job any easier. Does it worry you?
Well, look, the president's a big believer in free speech, as you know. He's got strong opinions. I think he's very frustrated for some of his very loyal employees being caught up in the machinery of a persecution.
And here's the thing. I'm a believer in free speech, but you draw a line between free speech and engaging in stochastic terrorism and threatening prosecutors and threatening judges and threatening the prosecutor's wife during active cases. That's not a matter of free speech and free expression to threaten people. But again, that just gives you a sense of who Trump's legal team is there. And by the way, I just showed you Trusty, Tacopina, and Parlatore, right? And there's a whole nother video that I've made before where we've talked about the, Christina Bobb and Alina Habba and Jenna Ellis and, and many, many more of these incompetent and just bizarre lawyers who are part of Trump's legal team. But folks, they are turning on each other. The lawyers seem that they, hate each other. I mean, again, accusing each other of conflicts of interest publicly. And basically, if you watch Parlatore's interview, he was basically he's basically almost admitting that he was the source in the Rolling Stones article without saying that. He's basically calling Tacopina an idiot by saying, hey, I'm not talking about this guy anymore. But, what did Trump say? He only hires the best, right? It's all projection. He hires the worst. I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 1.5 million subscribers thanks to your incredible support. So please hit subscribe right now, and also check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Check us out there. Also, check us out on audio. If you like audio podcasts, we got a great one, MeidasTouch Podcast. It's free to subscribe. So if you're watching this video, you got to subscribe to our audio podcast. Just search MeidasTouch Podcast, hit subscribe. It's free. All right, now subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas.
Lock him up! Indictment season is upon us. Celebrate with the new Indictment season t-shirt and v-neck exclusively at store.meidastouch.com.